Hello, YouTube folks and people. Yep, Tim Shaw Bells. Yep, Kit Kat. So I'm gonna start this with a little sound, just to continue doing that. There's a lot of times I just either forget or just get caught up in everyday whatevers. So it's a little moment to take a deep breath, take a nice deep breath, and some Tim Shaw Bells. Cat whiskers. Here she's. Let's see. Let's see if I share this today. Okay. Okay. So I just kind of look at that as a little extra. The kitty cat. So, okay. Hi. Today's video is going to be kind of short. This video is, anyways. I want to talk a little bit about the new moon, and we're having an eclipse right now. And I want to talk about the new moon and kind of some of the things that aren't always mentioned when it comes to like working with the moon and that type of thing. I like the moon. I like this planet. I like the universe. I like what we see. I'm realizing more and more that a lot of the things that we see and things that we've been taught are not quite what they taught us. And I do think the night sky is beautiful. I'm learning a lot as far as like magical stuff when it comes to the moon and the sun and the elements. So a couple years back, and if you've been watching my videos, been here for a while, so thank you for subscribing and liking and sharing that you do. I appreciate it. I had gotten a download from the planet basically talking about the symbol 0, or the circle, and that was actually one. This was right before the coronavirus outbreak, and I did a video about it. Well, also around that same time, just before that actually, I had watched a video on YouTube about how the months got their names, and from following the goddess path and the Sibyl prophetess path, I rediscovered or remembered or discovered or found out about the number 9 days, 90 minutes, I actually think is the day. The hour wasn't actually 60 minutes. I actually think it was 90 minutes because it links to how our brain will actually shut down and rest every 90 minutes. I don't know what every 90, like since we wake up, I'm not exactly sure, but that's something they said. Not shuts down, but it kind of like reboots itself and will pause. So I learned this when I went in regards to studying. They would say try to take a break every 90 minutes because your brain is going to take a break anyways. So then you take a break with your brain, and then when you go back to studying, another 90 minutes. So, and I also think that our day is supposed to be 18 hours, which would be 9, and that would be strung together by 18 90-minute hours. That's my theory, and I think it links to the to the year and all of that. And so we've been mistaught. And so that led me to the 9-day week calendar. And I was calling it the 9-day moon calendar because I based it off the moon, but I'm starting to wonder how much of that information is actually also true. So I kind of renamed it the 9-day Earth/moon calendar. Okay. So today, and with that, so what I do is I start with the new moon. And right now it's the new moon. So what's interesting is today is a Saturday. It is an eclipse day. So we're supposed to be having a solar eclipse today, this afternoon. Actually, it's coming up pretty much because this goes by Eastern time, and I'm helping with this, the witch's date book. This is 2022, and I do some of my own stuff outside of this date book as well. So I start with the new moon, and then I go 9 days, and I go by the planets. And so yesterday was actually the first day of the new moon. And that's the other thing, is typically what I've discovered is that each moon phase lasts about 3 days. Typically 3 days. Sometimes it'll only be like 2.5 days, but I'm wondering if that just is because of how we do our 7-day calendar. Anyhow, because it's technically 24 hours, so even though it goes into the next day, does it last that whole entire day? I don't think so, because we'll see things where the moon will be in void, and it can be in void for a few hours, or it can be in void for just a few minutes. So I'm guessing that links somewhere in there as well, with the 9-day week calendar. And so today would be Mercury. Okay. And then tomorrow would be Venus. And then Monday would be Mars. Tuesday would be Jupiter. Wednesday, Saturn. That type of thing, as far as those dates go. So part of this is mentioning because of there's a lot of magic that people will practice, or ritual that people will practice around the new moon. And so the new moon is exactly that, new beginnings. And then with the eclipse, it's also endings, right? And creating new beginnings as far as the energy goes. And then today would be Mercury. And Mercury, I believe, is the communicator and can help with basically cosmic messages. When you talk to I think it links to kind of like the theories of the gods. Mercury is the messenger. It's also the closest, they say, it's the closest to all the planets. So if we send a message to Mercury, it gets to all the other planets as well. And I think the behind the scenes magic doers, the ones who have been spelling the whole, citizens of the world that are not quote unquote the elite, or quote unquote, super wealthy. This is something that they teach us so that we don't totally get the balancing, because if we're going by the 7-day calendar, we're under the impression that today is Saturn energy. Well, my guess is that there is Saturn energy as well as Mercury energy, and I would assume, like how the planets move, if we have each day fixed, then we are actually kind of going against what those planets actually do. Those planets move and change in different positions, and sure, it helps with astrology, but I do think there's a little something going on there with having both, because in our culture we go by the 7-day Gregorian calendar, but in other cultures, such as certain places in the Middle East, because of like Ramadan, they go by the moon calendar. Okay. And then also same with China, they go by moon calendar, not time wise, and they still have the same days, but as far as celebrations and spiritual practices, if you want to call it that. Because in China, it may be looked at differently than spiritual. So, with that as well, tomorrow is the 1st. So the new moon is actually matching with the first day of the new month, okay? Even though it's the 3rd day of the new moon, and tomorrow would be Venus, which is also Sunday. So the energies of this weekend to me are a lot of balancing energies and a lot of new beginnings, endings. And when it comes to magic, and this has been affirmed by other people on YouTube as well as just in general, but and this was a message that had started actually about 3 years ago, to shift out of quote unquote like blood magic, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and into natural magic, or basically benevolent magic or light magic. That started a while back ago, and so there was kind of a push to continue practicing that kind of magic, but it is done. There is no more. The message that I got is any ill magics, and this isn't just for like people like you and I, or people who may watch this video, or other people who are into like tarot and that type of thing, or actually do ritual. It's also for those elite, those who have been doing ritual and magical practices behind the scenes that people don't know about, or that few know about, that isn't like well known, and that people are seeing these people as spiritual leaders, but actually they are practicing things that are not what they're presenting. So that will also start showing up. We're already kind of seeing it in certain things, and it's showing up even on media. But the next one will be a spiritual kind of jolt. And supposedly this energy is manifesting. We'll be having one more new moon on June, and that will be the last one. Is that right? I'm going to just double check that. Oh, actually, I'm incorrect. I think this is our last new moon on the 1st. Yep. Yeah. So this is, and I find that interesting because we're heading, we're in spring, and I do think, I haven't completely figured it out, but I do think that there is like those who know the calendars, those who actually are somehow related to those who created the calendars, understand by having us focus one way or another that we're not actually bringing both in. And I mean, I've really liked looking at both the 7-day calendar and the 9-day calendar, because I think it brings in a bit more clarity as to the energies and the possible magic that's happening, and also the possible magic or manifestations that I would like to create myself or others that are like us. So yeah, typically 3 days. And then when it comes to blood magic, and I'm linking this a little bit to, if you watch Deborah Speaks, she recently has been doing videos about the moon and how it relates to like the feminine. And one of the topics that came up was, so I'm going to start with this. So I had gotten a message from the planet because of certain links that you'll see in a lot of religions going way back to sacrifice, okay? Even to sacrifice. And I think I had been meditating, praying about circumcision, because when I look at the grand spell of everything, one of the most important things to bring to people, if you want to help bring control and confusion and certain illnesses, you need trauma. Well, first of all, like, I personally think that that is a form of trauma. Birth in itself is a form of trauma, and if we aren't doing things like how we used to do, which is where the baby would crawl up to the breast on its own, leave the umbilical cord for a while so that all the genetic coding and things that are needed that were in the belly that now can be transferred to the child. And then there's supposed to be a connection between the umbilical cord, the nursing, and the crawling up on the belly, that there's this whole thing. And I think it goes genetically and spiritually on many levels. So the way that people were having children are having children now, it's pretty traumatic. You're instantly taken away from the mother. You're wiped off. The umbilical cord is cut immediately. Sometimes you're slapped into breathing, crying so that they make sure that your lungs are clear and you're breathing. These things used to happen naturally. And sure, there was some, I think with the nursing, there would be spit up, right? Is my guess, is my theory. Okay. So, the circumcision was asked for by what I consider false deity, the false truth, to bring sacrifice. And so first it was to sacrifice the child, and Abraham was going to sacrifice the child, and then it was, instead of sacrificing the child, you do circumcision. So there's still some small form of trauma, and that's a very sensitive area. And then also a minimal amount of blood, but it's still blood, and usually the foreskin comes off in a circular form, which the circle is also a 1, and also goes back to a feminine symbol. Okay, so the message was, and some of you may or may not relate to this, I've always been bothered by the cross, especially the one with Jesus hanging on it. This person hanging on it. I always used to think, I mean, I used to believe that stuff. Why would we wear basically a symbol of torture? And torture of somebody so, benevolent is the theory. Well, it's a reminder of blood sacrifice. This is part of the magic that most of us are not seeing, but is part of the magic. Okay. So this originated from, yes, the woman's menstrual blood. This is the message I got from the planet. And also I did post a message on one of her videos, but I'm going to mention it here. If you haven't read it, or if you have the time and you'd like to check out a book where it really goes into the magic that can be, so there's 2 books actually. There's one is The Red Tent, and that talks about kind of like, I would say that's more like after the fall of consciousness and connectivity, which is the great ones, and that happened when we tried to blow things up. Anyhow, that's a whole nother story. But before that, we would use menstrual blood for healing all kinds of things. And yes, we would put it in our food. Not in our food, but we would put it in the things that our plants would grow in. And later on, I don't know if this was known then, it probably was, but the theory is that any of your fluids from your body, so your saliva, your urine, your menstrual blood, your actual blood if you cut yourself, your vomit, things like that, or you really don't want to be using your vomit or your feces. Those things really aren't good. But you can dilute your menstrual water, you can dilute your urine, and pour it into your plant water. And what it does is supposedly your DNA that's in there goes into the plant. The plant will almost like intensify itself to match your DNA, so that when you eat it, you're helping your DNA by almost, it's like you've put in a plant form of your DNA. I don't know. That kind of doesn't sound totally right, but that's how I interpreted it. It basically, it affects your, it will take, the plant will take in your DNA, and then when you eat it, you're actually helping your body. So, what ended up happening is somewhere, and also sexual fluid. Okay, and then in her video, she mentioned that yes, you can use urine for clearing up like acne. And then you can also use, I've recently heard you can use your menstrual blood for also clearing up acne. And so also there's this, I feel like I grew up with this, a stigma about the grossness of our menstrual blood. And I do think that most everything that's inside of our bodies that comes out of it doesn't smell awesome, and it's usually kind of what people say is gross. What I say is gross. And there was a time when we weren't always showering. Like we might have lived by the ocean, or we lived by a river, or we lived by water to clean with. However, like, to smell good is a fairly recent concern with humans, because we didn't always have the means to smell the way we do now, because of, and now we have all these different products and those type of things. So I think that is another way to kind of like keep us afraid of things that are gross about our bodies that we need to kind of like maybe learn more about. I don't know. That's just a theory. But the original blood magic was magic with the menstrual blood in many forms, saved, turned into powders. And I was saying, so the book, Mutant Message is the name of the book. And it's about a woman, I believe from the Americas, she might have been from the UK, who goes on a walkabout with some true Aboriginals of Australia, and learned a lot. And one of the stories that I remember is they had saved menstrual blood in this, like, kind of like a, I don't know if you've ever seen a didgeridoo, but the like a piece of wood hollowed out, and then the blood was saved inside of it. So at the top was the fresher blood, and at the bottom was the drier blood. And this medicine woman and this tribe who is helping with the walkabout heal incredible healing. So yeah. So what ended up happening is the message is that from the prophetesses, the priestesses, the empresses, the sibyls, those who knew the magic, the natural magic of menstrual blood, and used it strictly for healing. This became compromised because the ultimate message is that this was seen as power. Healing is power. Healing is a beautiful, wonderful power. And there became this energy, masculine energy, that was mad it couldn't actually give birth, and mad it couldn't heal like the female could. And so the blood magic became used in a basically bad way. and by actually causing bloodshed, whereas with the menstrual period, it just comes. No one's, I mean, it can be painful, as many of you may know, and cause all other kinds of stuff, especially nowadays, because our lives are different than how they used to be, especially when we would have our periods, our moons. But that became basically corrupted, and um, and that's where you hear all the stories, sacrificing animals for their blood. And anyways, no more. And we're really not supposed to be doing that anymore. We're not supposed to use our blood or our stuff in a magical way like that, because what ends up happening is those kinds of things can be manipulated malevolently. So if you do use your blood for ritual, which we don't need to anymore, is the main message. Like, we can use mental magic and we can use verbal, especially through singing and certain languages, especially through singing and sound and toning. Like, it's incredible healing magic, and it's incredibly manifesting magic. But the blood, like, it relates to sacrifice, which sacrifice originally, from what I learned, and I might need to do more research because I'm learning some words that I thought I had learned, and I'm learning that nope, that's not what they mean at all. And I have the thesaurus, so I should double check this. From what I understand, sacrifice comes from to make sacred, and may even come from like sac red, like the red blood of the female, because when we did have our periods, as you know, we sync up to this day. So in communities before, we would sync up. So there would be, like in the story of the red tent, there would be a bunch of women on their periods, basically bleeding into the ground or into a bowl or into a sack or into cloth. So I think there's a lot more about and that the reason why women couldn't go to certain ceremonies while they were on their periods is because they're actually more powerful. Not that it's because they're dirty, is what I learned, but because they are actually more powerful. They're already powerful, but then when they were on their periods, they were even more powerful. So, and could like somehow bring energies or spirits into ceremony that didn't need to be there. So that's mostly my message about the moon, blood magic, our periods. And so yeah, that's all shifting. That's all shifting. Oh, and the message was that those spells, what will happen is they will either completely dissipate. Spell's not really in that, but dispel, meaning to end it, right? It's like disintegrates, or is returned. It's not that it's returned, it's that if the intention is for somebody else, it won't work for that person, because the person who is intending will end up with the intention. That's what I'm hearing. And so yes, we're to be more careful about how we speak, but also we are being encouraged to love yourself. A lot of the conditioning, a lot of my conditioning was to kind of play down, not be honest about these kind of messages, not be honest about what I was getting from the great divine, which always, even when I thought, man, that the great divine was masculine specifically, they were totally different messages than most everybody else was getting. And it was messages of like, this is not okay. These are not okay. And so, these will also be things that are affecting like those who go by planetary magic, because that's also part of the backfire. Because if you're strictly going off of planetary magic and you're not aware of what other planets might be involved, it's only going to work actually in the favor of those who even shared the planetary magic in the first place. I knew that, but I didn't really know that. Okay, so quick little side notes before I gotta go is just healing side notes. Okay, walking. If you are having body problems, eye problems, stress, anxiety, depression, overwhelmingness, if you can walk 20 minutes a day, it will help greatly. It will help greatly. I've been walking now for a little over a year, and I'm just really surprised at how it's slow, but it's amazing. And then I'm being told to encourage people who have light language or the other language or tongues in the benevolent way to bring that in. All right, so little Tim Shaw bells before we go. So many things, more things I want to share. So I might do another video today. We'll see. Thanks for watching. You take care. May you have fortune, prosperity, prosperousness, honorable, good, love, 9, the energy of 9, the Great Mother in your life. Until next time.